Okay, this is lesson 9.5, quadrilaterals, and it's just about the same thing as triangles. It's the same idea. Here's some vocabulary. Quadrilaterals have 4 sides and 4 angles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's your 4 sides and 4 angles. And then they tell you, very importantly here, that the sum of the measures of the angles is 360. So like it was for the triangle, which was 180, for a quadrilateral, it's 360. Okay. So we're going to do basically the same thing except with a quadrilateral. Instead of 180, we're using 360. Here's some definitions. Rectangle, opposite sides are congruent and parallel in all right angles. A square, all sides are congruent, opposite sides are parallel, and all the angles are right angles. Very much like a rectangle. Parallelogram, opposite sides are congruent and parallel. Opposite angles are congruent. A rhombus says that, yes. A rhombus, all sides are congruent, opposite sides are parallel, and opposite angles are congruent. So a lot of these have the same properties. So that means that some of them can belong to more than one shape, more than one quadrilateral. The last one says a trapezoid has exactly one pair of opposite sides parallel. Okay, so it says classify the quadrilateral at the right. These little marks here, if there's 2 marks, that means it's the same length as the other side that has 2 marks. And if it has 1 mark, that means it is the same length as the other side that has 1 mark. So opposite sides, opposite means across from each other. Opposite sides are parallel. They are congruent. Let's see. Opposite sides, I'm going to read the definition for a rectangle. Opposite sides are congruent and parallel. That is true. And it says, and all right angles. Are these right angles? No. So it's not a rectangle. A square, all sides congruent. Okay. Well, this is not all sides congruent because you have this one and it's different from this one. If they were the same, they would have the same number of little marks. So we know it's not a rectangle and it's not a square. A parallelogram has opposite sides congruent. Okay. Parallelogram has opposite sides congruent and parallel. Okay, so those are parallel and congruent. Parallel and congruent. And opposite angles are congruent. Opposite angles means that let's see if I can erase this. Opposite angles are from here to here and from here to here. Are they the same size? They are. So this is a parallelogram. Parallelogram. Okay, let's see if it's a rhombus also. A rhombus has all sides congruent. Not all sides are congruent because remember this one has 2 marks and this one has 1. And then a trapezoid has exactly 1 pair of opposite sides parallel. And you know what? This one has 2 pairs. These are parallel and these are parallel. So that's not a trapezoid. So it is a parallelogram. Well, they tell you right there. Okay, let's look at number 1. In your Cornell notes, your summary is going to follow this question. Okay, your guiding question when you do your Cornell notes. And remember, any of these things I wrote up here, you can add on. If you want to add your vocabulary, all of these definitions into your Cornell notes, you can. But your guiding question is going to need to answer this right here. What are the steps? What This is for your summary. What are these steps to finding the missing angle measurement? Missing angle measurement of a quadrilateral. You want to write this down in your summary. That's a cue. Quadrilateral. Okay, what are the steps? Pause it so that you can get that written down while I move on. I have a cup right here. You can get a drink. Shh, stop fighting. There's a cup right there if you want to get a drink. Okay, remember that we're supposed to find the missing length, and they add up to 360. So this time it's 120 plus 90 plus 70 plus something that we don't know, so we put an X there, equals 360. In your Cornell notes, solve that. You're going to add these together, which equals 280. So 280 plus something that we don't know yet equals 360. How do you find that? To find a missing number in an addition problem, you simply subtract 360. Ariel, stop talking. Minus 280. And you do all this subtraction in your Cornell notes. Is 80. So that equals 80. Now pause the video and open up your calculator app and add 120 plus 90 plus 70 plus 80. Did you get 360? You should have. Okay, number 2. This time we have 55 plus 85 plus 120 plus some number we don't know, so we put an X there, equals what? 360. You have to remember it's 360 degrees for a quadrilateral. Okay, so let's add this together. Pause it while you figure that out. Okay, and then that adds up to 260. Now 260 plus what equals 360? That's equal to 100. So that means this is 100 degrees. Okay, just in case I'm wrong, why don't you go ahead and get your calculator app and add them together. Okay, the last one. 125 plus 95 plus 90. Ariel, stop. No. Plus something we don't know, so we put an X there, equals 360. Okay, add all of that together. It's 185. I don't know what that is. So I'm going to add 125 plus 185. Adding it together, you should be adding it to, that's 310. Plus what equals 360? 310 plus 50. 50 is an acute angle. Does that look like an acute angle? It does. Now use your calculator app to check it to see that all of that adds up to 360. How fun that you get to use your calculator. Okay, classify each quadrilateral. Well, this one says, let's see if it's a rectangle. See if I can make it as big as possible. A rectangle has opposite sides congruent. Yep, opposite sides are the same. They all have the same little mark. They're all parallel. That means they're not. Okay, and they all have right angles. Well, my goodness, that applies for the rectangle and then also the square. All sides are congruent. They all are congruent. They're all parallel and they all have right angles. Let's see if it's also a parallelogram. A parallelogram has opposite sides congruent and parallel. Okay, that's all true. They're congruent, they're parallel, and opposite angles are congruent. This is congruent to that one, that's opposite. These two opposite ones are congruent. So it's also a parallelogram. Let's see if it's a rhombus. Rhombus says all sides are congruent. Yes, because it has one mark on all of them. Opposite sides are parallel, and opposite angles are congruent. So far it's all four. Let's see if it's a trapezoid. Trapezoid has exactly one pair of opposite sides parallel. Nope, this one has exactly two opposite sides that are parallel. So it's not a trapezoid. So it's everything but a trapezoid. It is a rectangle. It is a square. It is a parallelogram. Baby, go away. You're making a lot of racket with that ice. It is a rhombus. Okay, it's all four of those. Can you believe that? It belongs to all four. Okay, now let's do number 5. Number 5 is, well, opposite sides are congruent. It's a rectangle. Is it also a square? No, it's not, because this length is not congruent to this one, so it's not a square. Is it a parallelogram? Opposite sides are congruent and parallel, and opposite angles are congruent. That is true. These are parallel and congruent. These are parallel and congruent. And opposite angles are congruent. So that also makes it a parallelogram. Is it a rhombus? Let's see. A rhombus has all sides congruent. No, because this side has one mark and this side has two. One mark, two, not all sides are congruent. And then it's not a rhombus. Let's see, all sides are congruent? No. Trapezoid has exactly one pair of opposite sides parallel. This one has both pairs. And this right here is a trapezoid because it has exactly one pair of opposite sides parallel. Okay, so now it's time to go back and answer your guiding question in your summary. What are the steps to finding the missing angle measurement of a quadrilateral? If you are not sure, go back and look at what we did on numbers 1, 2, and 3 and make that your summary.